Japan, a beautiful country, famously known for its sakura, for its discipline, for its cleanliness, and for its economy. Japan is considered as among the top global economy superpower. This is despite the fact that they have lost the war to US in the World War II. With their dedication and commitment, Japanese drive their economy from the dust to strive at the top of Asia. However, their successful comes with challenges. In the late 1980s, Japan's economy was booming. The stock market was soaring, property prices were skyrocketing, and Japanese companies were dominating global markets. It seemed like nothing could stop their rapid growth. But then, everything changed. In the early 1990s, Japan experienced a massive economic downturn. This period of stagnation, which lasted for over a decade, is now known as Japan's lost decade. So, what exactly has happened? One of the main factors contributing to Japan's economic decline was the bursting of the asset price bubble. During the late 1980s, the value of land and stocks reached the astronomical levels. Land prices, especially in major urban centers like Tokyo, skyrocketed to astronomical levels. At its peak, the value of the Imperial Palace grounds in Tokyo was purportedly greater than the entire state of California. The Nikkei stock index surged to dizzying heights, peaking at nearly 39,000 points in December 1989. Investors poured money into stocks, expecting the market to continue its upward trajectory indefinitely. However, when the bubble burst, these asset prices plummeted, leaving banks and businesses with enormous amounts of bad debt. Land prices, which had been a cornerstone of Japan's economic boom, began to decline rapidly. The bursting of the real estate bubble led to a wave of bankruptcies among property developers and financial institutions heavily exposed to real estate loans. The Nikkei stock index experienced a dramatic plunge, losing more than half of its value from its peak by late 1992. This abrupt decline wiped out vast amounts of wealth and investor confidence. To make matters even worse, Japan's banking system was ill-equipped to handle the aftermath of the burst bubble. Many banks were left with non-performing loans, which hindered their ability to lend and support economic growth. Japanese banks found themselves saddled with enormous amounts of non-performing loans as borrowers defaulted on their obligations. This strained the financial sector and impaired banks' ability to lend, exacerbating the economic downturn. This has created a vicious cycle, as the lack of credit availability further weakened the economy. Another key factor was Japan's aging population. Japan has one of the oldest populations in the world, with a significant proportion of its citizens aged 65 and older. The combination of increased life expectancy and declining birth rates has led to a demographic imbalance, where the elderly population outweighs the younger working-age population. As the population grew older, consumer spending declined, leading to a decrease in demand. This, in turn, affected businesses and led to a deflationary spiral. With falling prices, consumers held off on making purchases, expecting prices to drop even further. This lack of consumer spending further contributed to the economic downturn. An aging population places increased pressure on social welfare systems such as pensions, health care, and long-term care services. Japanese government faces challenges in funding and sustaining these systems amid a shrinking tax base and rising healthcare costs. The aging population also has resulted in a shrinking workforce, as a smaller pool of younger workers enters the labor market to replace retirees. This demographic imbalance has implications for productivity, innovation, and economic growth. Furthermore, Japan's corporate culture played a significant role in the lost decade. Japanese companies, known for their long-term planning and loyalty to employees, were reluctant to lay off workers or close unprofitable divisions. This has led to a phenomenon known as zombie companies. which were essentially non-viable businesses surviving on bank loans. Many inefficient and unproductive companies were kept afloat due to lenient lending practices and a reluctance to let firms go bankrupt. This led to a misallocation of resources and hindered productivity growth. These zombie companies hindered economic recovery by tying up resources that could have been used more productively. How the Japanese government response to the crisis was also criticized. Initially, they implemented expansionary fiscal and monetary policies to stimulate the economy. However, these measures were not enough to pull Japan out of the recession. Some did argue that the hesitancy to implement more aggressive reforms and structural changes prolonged the economic downturn. So, what were the consequences to Japanese resulting from this event of Japan's lost decade? Well, the economy experienced low growth, high unemployment, and deflation. It took years for Japan to recover from this period of stagnation, and even today, the effects can still be felt. However, it's important to note that the lost decade also brought about some positive changes. It forced Japanese companies to restructure and become more competitive in the global market. Additionally, it highlighted the need for reforms in the banking sector and led to changes in government policies. One of the hardest hit areas was the banking sector. During the bubble years, banks engaged in reckless lending practices, leading to a surge in non-performing loans. As the bubble burst, these loans became a burden, eroding the financial stability of many banks. To address this issue, the Japanese government implemented various measures, including injecting money capital into many struggling banks and establishing the asset management company. Another critical aspect of Japan's lost decade was the deflation. Falling prices may sound like a good thing, but deflation can have severe consequences for an economy. As consumers anticipate further price declines, they delay purchases, which leads to reduced demand and weakened economic growth. Japan experienced a prolonged period of deflation during the 1990s, exacerbating the economic downturn. The government implemented expansionary monetary policies and fiscal stimulus to combat deflation and revive economic activity. The lost decade also had a significant impact on Japan's labor market. High unemployment rates and job insecurity became prevalent. Many companies resorted to downsizing and implementing strict cost-cutting measures. This led to a decline in consumer spending and further weakened economic growth. The government responded by introducing labor market reforms and promoting job creation initiatives to address the unemployment crisis. Japan has one of the oldest populations globally, and this demographic trend has posed unique challenges to the economy. As the workforce aged, productivity declined, and the burden on the social security system increased. To mitigate these challenges, the government implemented policies to encourage women's participation in the workforce, extended the retirement age, and promoted immigration. We cannot ignore the impact of the lost decade on Japan's global standing. Once considered as a super economic power, Japan's prolonged economic stagnation raised concerns about its ability to compete in the global market. However, Japan's resilience and commitment to innovation allowed it to regain its footing. Today, Japan continues to be a leader in technology, manufacturing, and other industries. So, what lessons can we learn from Japan's lost decade? Firstly, it highlights the importance of prudent financial practices and the need for effective regulation to prevent the buildup of economic bubbles. Secondly, it emphasizes the significance of proactive monetary and fiscal policies to combat deflation and stimulate economic growth. Lastly, it underscores the need for continuous adaptation and innovation to remain competitive in a rapidly changing global economy. I hope you have gained valuable insights into this challenging period in Japan's history. Consider subscribing. Check out my top videos and I'll see you there.